In this lesson, we're going to take a look at material status control. After completing this lesson, you should be able to describe material status control, explain how material status control is used, explain allowed and disallowed transaction types in relationship to the material status, and how to set up material statuses. First, let's start with material status control levels. Within the system, you can set up the material status controls at the subinventory level, locator level, lot level, and serial level. When using the material status controls, it enables you to control whether you can pick or ship an internal or sales order or do certain material issues. You can specify whether the material needs to be quarantined until you inspect it. Additionally, you can determine whether products with a particular status can be reserved, included in the ATP calculation, or netted in production planning. These controls are not available in the material status if it's enabled at the serial number because of performance implications. When assigning the material status control to subinventories and locators, it's very common for a material that needs to be dispositioned. You can do it for a whole subinventory or just a locator within a subinventory. You can optionally assign a default lot or serial status to an item. So when you receive the item, the system automatically assigns the default status to the item. So if you want things to come in and be automatically quarantined or whatever the case might be, you can do that. You can track material status at the subinventory, lot, subinventory, locator, lot, and serial number level in the item's quantity user interface. When a material status is assigned to a subinventory or locator, the material is not assigned the material status of the subinventory or locator, but rather it takes on the behavior indicated by that particular status for that particular subinventory or locator. Next is managing what's allowed and disallowed. When you set up a material status, you can allow and disallow certain transactions. Disallowed transactions and planning actions are cumulative. When you set up a transaction type, you can determine whether some transactions can be restricted by material status. The transactions for which you enabled the status control in the transaction type window appear in the material status user interface. Most of what you'll see is all of the seeded ones, and if you create new ones in the transaction types window, you need to check the itty bitty checkbox. Next is how to set it up. So in the create material status window, it needs a name. Description is optional. The usage, so is it going to be subinventory, locator, lot, serial number, and then what are we going to allow? Reservations, yes, no. Include in the available promise, yes, no. And is it going to be seen by the planning engine as good supply? That one's important, especially if you're setting up a material review board subinventory. If you say it's not nettable, if something goes in there, then the system is going to assume that it's short. If it isn't there and it's nettable and the material is bad, then you may have to scramble to get good material. So just understand what the system's going to do with that AWD checkbox and that piece of information. Then what transactions are going to be allowed or disallowed. So this will control what you can do with that item with that particular status. Or in this case, at the subinventory level for defective material, I think that's almost backwards. I'd rather disallow everything but the subinventory transfer. But that's me. I didn't set that one up. Next, some profiles and reports. So there's a profile option, material status enforced. This profile option will flag the system. It's either going to enforce it or not. There's also a report that shows you every place that the material statuses are being used and how they're being assigned, especially if they're assigned to items. So we have a practice. So let's go do that right after we do a quick summation. So now you should know the material statuses can be used to control the movement of material, especially if you need to disposition something. If it's lot and serial controlled, you can put it on hold where it sits, so you don't have to move it to a subinventory or locator that has